Hello and welcome to this SEB presentation. My name is Henrik Jernbeck, and today I have the pleasure of having CEO of OssDsign, Mr. Morten Henneveld. Great to have you here, Morten.
Thank you very much for having me back.
Let's jump straight into the questions Q&A. You've recently released big news. You announced a strategic shift in the business where you decided to focus all your resources towards the orthobiologics business. And by that, you also discontinued the cranial business. Could you start by elaborating a little bit more on the decision, why you did that?
I think it's been very obvious to a lot of people how fast the orthobiologics business has grown. Remember, it was something that came on the back of an acquisition in 2020, which we launched late 21. And from then on, it's just gone really fast, actually to the extent that it became the largest franchise in the company in the second quarter. Now, the reason for mobilizing full force on that really is that it is such a scalable business as we have already seen. It's a 1.8 billion market that we are operating in the US. It's standard procedures. It is helped with lots of tailwind, with a growing population. We see a shift towards more synthetic products. And we also see a shift from older synthetic products to the latest generation that are clearly new. And then it's a business that operates with more than 90% gross margin. And as a result of that move, where we also discontinue cranial, we will be operating with a significantly reduced cost base, which means that we should see operating leverage, we should see an improved cash flow, and therefore also reduced time to cash flow positive.
Yeah. And just a couple of weeks ago, you had two other major news out, and I just want to start with the first one. You announced a new milestone, 2,000 patients treated with a catalyst. And what's driving the sales momentum in catalyst right now?
Hopefully, I think, blood, sweat, and tears. Yeah. But no, clearly, we are very pleased with the underlying momentum. We reported 500 in January, 1,000 in May, and now 2,000. So we're seeing an X2 to the momentum right now. What's driving it is simply that we're getting into more hospitals in general. We are also seeing surgeons getting more used to using the product, which means that they may be expanding their use in their practice. But I think really what's driving a lot of the uptick right now, we've previously said that sales is not going to be linear. It's going to be more like staircase when we get some of these bigger approvals. And we have been getting a number of approvals in what's called integrated delivery networks, the very large hospital systems. They're very hard to get into. They take a very long time. It's very professional processes, procurement processes. But of course, once you get in, they represent an enormous potential. So I would say those are certainly one of the things impacting the sales acceleration in the second quarter.
Yep. And the impact from an IDN, you announced it in your Q2 report that you have won 2 big IDNs in the US. And have you already seen an impact from those was that during Q2 or was it by the end of Q2?
Well, we've won 2 this year. One came in very late in Q1, so that is certainly a Q2 impact. And we also won another one. We also have, I would say, some tier 2 IDNs, but at least 2 major ones. The last one, we have really seen the impact of that in the Q2 numbers. But it's something that we're extremely pleased with because they're very professional, typical. You don't just need one surgeon to champion in the hospital. We've seen cases where we need to have 5 surgeons actually championing. It's RFP, so it's very professionally run procurement. So it takes time, many of them more than a year. And therefore, of course, we're extremely pleased when we finally managed to get in. It's certainly also blue stamp to the offering that we have because it's not easy and many companies want to get into these large systems.
And also announced a couple of weeks ago in relation to the milestone almost was the expanded FDA clearance.
Yeah.
And just what was the expanded clearance or interbody cages, but can you explain that a little bit more for those who doesn't understand really?
Yeah.
And then also what the implications might be on sales.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we are extremely pleased with the clearance. We have deliberately not talked at all to this for competitive reasons. We did not want anyone to even have the idea that we were going for this. Essentially, what it means that in a normal spinal surgery, you use pedicle screws, you use some screws and some rods, but then you also use a spinal cage, and that's what's called the interbody space. It's been well known in the marketplace that all surgeons will be using bone graft in the interbody space. They will be putting bone graft into the cage, anterior, posterior to the cage. And the estimation actually is that about 50% of all bone graft being used in spinal surgery will go to the interbody space. Having said that, until recently, no one has been cleared for that. There were two other companies that got cleared on their spinal cages with the bone graft last year, and then OssDsign. So we were elevated overnight from being, I would say, one in many in the marketplace. As you know, it's a very crowded marketplace with a really good story, good safety data, good preclinical data, the best we've seen. But from there on, suddenly getting into this elite category of synthetic bone grafts where surgeons can now use you on label for all major spine procedures. So it was a groundbreaking day for us, and something that has really resonated in the US spinal industry.
Is this something that has caught the attention of surgeons already, or?
Absolutely, absolutely. We were, excuse me, the day we announced it, we were inundated with messages from surgeons. Of course, it's also an opening for us to get into hospitals, maybe. So we're trying to fully capitalize on the window. We think there will be more companies.
Do you think that the lead times, you could say, I mean, or the time to approval for each hospital will decrease on this, or do you only think that it might gather much more attention and it will be easier?
I mean, we
start the process.
Right now we take quite a conservative view. We don't expect that the entire world and will change overnight just because we have this. We think that this will help us to get into more hospitals because we will be viewed by as a tier one, definitely a tier one synthetic bone graft. We also think that it's going to increase usage because to the extent that a surgeon has a choice between two products, and if he thinks or he or she thinks they're both equally good, then why wouldn't you use the one that you can use on label?
And on the note of increased usage, in a typical surgery for lumbar spine fusion, do you think that your product will be used more on each surgery now, or do you think it has been used off-label before?
I mean, I don't think it's going to be used more because if it's used off-label, it's already used off-label, right? And we don't know about it, of course. Until you have a clearance, you cannot, as a manufacturer, promote the use of it. So I don't see this as increasing the market as such. Where I see that it can increase is that it can allow us to steal more market shares. Where, as I said before, maybe you don't even have to show you're significantly better than others. But if you are on label, it is reducing the risk for the surgeon, it's reducing the risk for the hospital, and therefore it's always preferable, if you can as a surgeon, to use a product that's on label.
So it's still 1.8 billion market, as you have previously said many times. But looking at your guidance of 150 to 200 million in sales in the medium term, it would put you around 1% of the market then in the US. Is this a bit conservatively guided then?
I don't know. I look at it the other way. You're not the only one who has asked. The way I see it, Henrik, is that this market is so large and it's so profitable that actually you don't need to get a very deep penetration of the market to have a very solid and very profitable business. Is it unambitious? I'll let other people to judge it. I think it going from having nothing on the orthobiologics 2 years ago to getting to 200 million, of 150 to 200 million in the medium term. I think that's a pretty ambitious, and it's also approximately the time where we expect the company to break even. So I think it's an ambitious but yet very realistic plan. Yes.
You are certainly experiencing good momentum right now, so the upcoming Q3 report will be interesting, but I think we're out of time right now. So I want to thank you for coming here to our
Thank you
studio
very much
doing
for
this
having me.
interview, and thank you for watching.